Thank you very much, and let me express my appreciation to both of you for holding this hearing, and thanks to the witnesses for being present. On this past Monday, I held a bipartisan regional roundtable discussion in my district to tackle the critical issue of flooding, flood prevention, and flood control. We had federal, state, regional, and local stakeholders who participated in a rather lively discussion. And during the roundtable, it was explained how $100 billion in flood damage was prevented by spending $2 to $3 billion annually on a flood control system. And it was clear that issues of flooding, flood prevention, and flood control must be addressed regionally using cross-functional teams with stakeholders at all levels of government and working together. So my question, and let me precede that by saying that we've had great cooperation with the Corps in that area. I'm from Dallas, Texas, not the coastal area of Houston. But how can the Corps develop national programs that focus on preventing flooding rather than just being reactive and responding to flooding? That's one question. The second one is, how can the Corps share information of flooded areas with navigation technology, provide us to reroute drivers away from flooded roads and highways? And the third one, and maybe you can, both of you can address all three, does the Corps have the authority it needs to address stormwater runoff, filtering stormwater, and recharge aquifers? I hope I didn't overwhelm you with all three questions at one time.
You almost did. No, ma'am. I'll take the prevent flooding one. I agree with you 100%. $1 prevention is worth $10 of fixing, and I agree with you 100%. Now, the only thing that keeps us from doing that is the authorization and the appropriation of money, both in the president's budget and by the Congress. And we realize it, and our people like yourself out in these communities bring to us the reasons we need flood control here. We need it. Okay, so we realize it, the Corps goes back, looks at it, but then getting it from there to a product, it's hard, and it's getting harder all the time. Now, when a storm hits and washes away everything you've got, then people are willing to jump in and help you then that weren't willing to help you prevent that flooding. So that's where we are. And, you know, we take what money we can get as a Corps of Engineers and spread it as thin as we can. Although I think General Spellman mentioned just a few minutes ago, we're trying to complete projects with what money we get before starting another project. Now, there's an argument there whether we ought to be doing that or not. And, you know, so I hope I didn't confuse you.
Ma'am, I would only add to what the Secretary said, but just humbly a little historical perspective. I mentioned in my opening statement that the nation's experiencing its wettest year on record, at least east of the Mississippi, in over 124 years. And the nation, Congress, and the administration have, over generations, invested in flood control. Because if this year's event happened 100 years ago, we've had those type of floods, and hundreds of people have died. I mean, there are mass graves in this country that bury the dead from flood events. We had some deaths this year, but not in the hundreds, certainly not in the thousands. So now it's getting this infrastructure ready for the next generation, and all that we are seeing with changes in precipitation and sea level rise. And in Corps, we're committed to do our part within all of our authorities to advance this infrastructure to get it ready for the next generations that follow us.
Well, thank you very much. My time is about out, but what do we have to do to encourage a bit more focus on prevention? Does it mean legislative authority?
On prevention of flooding, I think we've got a lot of authorities in general, but on particular projects, they have to go through the system. They have to have an authorization, and then they have to have the environmental work done on it, have to get a chief's report, and finally come back to the Congress for appropriations or be put into the president's budget. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. My time's expired.